How's everybody going? Haven't heard from me a lot, have you? Well, let's delve into some reenacting talk. Yes, some reenacting talk. So, one of the perennial things that comes up in reenacting are points-based scenarios. In other words, it's like a game. There is a number of objectives that have to be met. You get points for the objectives, or there's a certain way to gain points. It's important for your side to gain points, and important for you to keep the other side from gaining points. And I went to an event this weekend where that was exactly the game. Came off fairly well. Curiously, one of the things that's inaccurately done or not done is you have a points-based game, and we can't seem to give the point spread at the end of the game, at the end of the weekend. And I don't know if this is like something from just an oversight on the event organizers' behalf, which I'm not griping, guys, y'all did a hell of a job, or whether this is part of the participation trophy culture, where we just can't call out a loser or a winner and damage people's fragile egos. Well, fuck all that. Because if you got a fragile ego, you need to grow the fuck up. Now, one of the things I'm going to get into real quick is about addressing cheating in a rules-based game. Now, how do you address cheating? Well, generally, if the other side cheated and won, anything you say is going to be construed as sour grapes, or you've got a weak, leaky vagina because you are complaining and the other team won. You just need to suck it up. You're looking for a reason for the other team to have won. I tend to look at this like, well, yeah, I can understand that mindset. So with me, it's much more advantageous if the other team cheats and loses. And that was the case this weekend. Whether they didn't know it, whether they did know it and didn't care, there was a set boundary of where you were allowed to fight. I knew where the boundary was. My folks knew where the boundary was. Apparently, the other side did not know where the boundary was. And, of course, they went outside that boundary and advanced across a terrain feature of open ground that was clearly not within bounds. And they made great gains, pushed down the flank, the whole 9 yards. Now, we checked them, and we contained them up on that hill and kept them up there all day until it was time for us to pull back, because we'd already gained all the objectives that we could in the area we were holding. They still lost. And for some reason, they still want to act like they won. Now, when you say, hey, dude, you lost and you cheated, how does that feel? That has a bigger impact, because you've already proven that you're a winner, that you've won, that you were competitive, that you achieved your task. The other side did not achieve their task. Yet, you could just be gracious in victory. No. Fuck all that. We need to end cheating. We need to make sure everybody knows what the fuck they're doing. Look, if you want to cheat, really, does that make your victory okay? Does it? Does it make your victory okay? Winning at any cost. When it gets to that point where there's no longer any sense of sportsmanship, and don't get me wrong, I do believe that there are certain elements in the hobby that have some sort of fictional psychosis where they think that they're actually refighting the battles of World War II, and they're advancing whatever ideology it is that they subscribe to. Me, I'm competitive, and I don't have an ideology behind any of my impressions. And other than I'm an Army nerd, you're trying to honor the memory of World War II soldiers. I continuously hear that, honoring the memory. Do you honor the memory by cheating? Let's face it, guys. I don't care how authentic you are. I don't care about your hand-stitched underwear. I don't care about your leather soles on your boots, which I happen to have both these items. I really don't care. If you're going to cheat, or you don't know what you're doing in the field, sorry, you're fucked up. You're absolutely fucked up. And all sides lost large numbers of casualties in World War II. Are you honoring those folks by not taking your hits? Are you honoring those folks by not taking 10 minutes out of your day to lay down and play dead because you just got overran and shot in the back? I'll be honest with you. When I go to an event and I end up getting where I am dead, I enjoy taking my 5-10 minutes off. It gives me a chance to get a drink of water, gives me a chance to shove a piece of food in my mouth, and that's actually welcome to get off your feet sometimes. I'm not really sure why folks are so hesitant to take hits. I'm not sure if it's that you feel like you're admitting to defeat or admitting you fucked up. We all fuck up. And let me tell you what, you can be the best soldier in the world. If you happen to be on the wrong end of an artillery barrage, it doesn't matter how good you are, you're still just as dead. And that's the reality of shit. And when it comes to reenacting, I'm going to stress, being in the military, even in peacetime, is not pleasant. Being in the military in wartime is really not pleasant. And you have to understand, in the military, you do things you don't like to do. In the military, this is always one of my favorite pet peeves. I'm not going to an event if so-and-so is there. I'm not going to an event if so-and-so is there. Really? You know what? When I was in the Army on a daily basis, I worked with people I absolutely could not fucking stand. Absolutely. Had no fucking choice about it. And there were times I had to put my fucking safety and my well-being in their hands because that's the only fucking choice you have. Now, if you're so wrapped up, I just don't get the whole thing here. I realize that there are a lot of different ideas about how to approach reenacting. Honestly, guys, everybody who reenacts, you're this close to LARPing. I mean, dude, there is hardly any degree of separation. You might pretend there is. You might have studied a book, 8 Ways to Sunday. Every single stitch in your gear is period correct. Every single little item on your body. Maybe you're German and you put on one of the prosthetic foreskins so you're not circumcised and you use thumbtacks or whatever it is you guys do. Hey, good on you. If you don't know how to use your weapon, if you don't know how to clear a jam, if you don't know how to do the immediate action for the weapon system you're on, you're a FARB. Because I will tell you this much, in World War II, soldiers did not know how their gear was constructed. They paid no attention to it. They were issued shit, and they wore it, and they went forward. They didn't care if there was a rivet or a stitch. They didn't care. Now, it's great that you have the right shit, but that shouldn't be your whole window on the hobby. You should understand the proficiency of your weapon. You should understand immediate action. You should understand maintenance. You should understand basic land navigation. You should understand, if you're doing a radio man, you should understand the radio procedure. If you're a leader, you should understand how to give grid coordinates. There's so much more to this hobby than going out and pulling a trigger. Now, for you guys that's all you want to do is go out and make your guns go bang, cool. There's a place for you. And generally, those people aren't preaching. And they receive the ire of a bunch of other folks. Look, I've got a level of authenticity that is higher than most as far as my uniforms go, and I'm fine with it. I don't preach on others. What do I do? Well, I go out and make collar liners and make sure everybody in my unit has a collar liner. I'll sit down and teach them how to sew the damn things in. because you get all these guys that want to put collar liners in like they're a permanent piece of the fucking deal. No, you're supposed to switch that out every so often. But when you get right down to it, folks, this arguing and cheating, if in doubt, take a hit. It doesn't take much to separate a 30-something-year-old man from a 5-year-old playing in a sandbox when he's pissed off at somebody else for getting called out. You know, I saw grown men throw fucking hissy fits this past weekend, and it's nothing new, and it's nothing I haven't drawn attention to before. You know, I'm sitting there watching one of the opposing sides. I'm watching them cross out of bounds. I don't immediately get upset about it, or I didn't get upset about it. I simply radioed in, hey, we have this force in this area which is clearly outside of bounds. How do you know they're outside of bounds? Well, they're crossing this terrain feature. That terrain feature? Yes. Well, that's clearly out of bounds. Yes, it is. And it was addressed with the commander of that side. And interestingly enough, either the commander of that side didn't address it with his troops, or the troops just willfully ignored whatever remedial ass chewing they should have got. You know, I guess there's also a certain amount of to be or not to be. Should we even have a point system with this? I don't really have an opinion one way or another. It makes it more interesting. It forces troops to move. If you're just going to sit static in a defense all day and not move, and there's no real scenario, there's no real reason to move, then what are you going to accomplish during the day? Seriously, what are you going to accomplish during the day? But if you have a point system, there is going to be a winner and there is going to be a loser. And I guess a lot of people get upset about losing. It's part of life. You should learn from a loss. You should also learn from a victory. But it's interesting. You guys can give me your thoughts on whether you think that reenacting should have a point system, or should reenacting just be the deal that you go to just to hang out, bust caps, and hang out with your friends, and when it's all over, sit around this fire and talk shit and drink beer. Now, I will tell you, I like sitting around talking shit and drinking beer. I'm fine with that. And you guys that want to go out and sleep in a blanket out in a shell crater, man, have at it. You know, I've done that. I've done that when I was younger and things didn't hurt. Are there too many old men in the hobby? Probably. But if you take all the old men out of the hobby, you lose most of your machine guns. You're going to lose just about all your vehicles. And you're going to lose most of the shit that makes reenacting neat. Now, do the old men pick on the young guys too much? I don't think so. I remember being picked on by some of the older hands. I was still in the Army when I started doing this shit. So I don't think that young folks are being picked on unnecessarily. But I do think that sometimes folks need to toughen up a bit. And you need to decide what it is you want out of the hobby. You really do need to decide what it is you want out of the hobby. You know, for me, I enjoy a good fight. I also enjoy a good goof off. I'll give you an example. I went and ran the bar at Fort Mifflin, ran the tavern in civilian clothes. I had a full beard. For those of you who missed that, sorry. It was quite impressive. It hit all this ugly shit. And I did nothing but sling beer, made sure people had snacks, and tried to set a little atmosphere. Never touched a weapon as far as I can remember. I know I didn't take any weapons. I think the biggest weapon I had was a knife for cutting meat and cheese and bread. Those were my weapons. And I enjoyed it. And I sat back and had a good time because I got to do the BSing part, which generally, if you go to an event and you're in any sort of a leadership role, you don't have time for that. If you do, you're probably not attending to your duties the way you should be. Reenacting is kind of the inverse of the military. A leader does more in reenacting than he does in the Army. Because most of the leaders in the Army, have people, you tell them to do it and you do it. In reenacting, you tell people to do stuff, and a lot of these guys aren't that much into the impression that they're going to take orders from anybody. It's their weekend to goof off. It's their weekend. Even a lot of the so-called authentics just don't want to listen, and that's fine. So generally, a leader ends up cooking meals. A leader ends up making sure that everything needs to be done to make sure his unit has shit. Now, I will tell you from experience that sometimes NCOs get roped into that, but more often than not, a good NCO is able to motivate his privates and specialists and corporals and all that happy shit under him to get stuff done. I see officers at World War II or even World War I doing a lot of shit that should be the duties of private, but the problem is they want to make sure it gets done because they want to make sure their shit's right. A lot of units don't have operational chain of commands, and it's amazing how many people just want to disappear when there's work to be done. That's one of those things, and I see it through all sides. It's just not one particular impression. I see it through all impressions, and I do multiple impressions. And what's funny is to do an impression that I'm not normally known for, and people walk up to me in that different uniform and they have no idea it's me. Is what it is, folks. Just things to ponder about. Anyhow, if you were at the event I was at, which I'm not going to mention, I'm still working on an AAR, and you have any bitches, gripes, or concerns, go ahead and hit me up. I'll pass it along to my AAR or make reference to it. If I think it's a valid point, if it's something I didn't see and it's a serious infraction, give me a holler. I'll probably reach out to you to get to know more about it, to try to understand what happened. I think a lot of folks just need to gravitate towards the idea that we're all trying to make things better, and you have to work at making things better, and you have to be able to give constructive criticism, just not, hey, this is fucked up. Okay, it's fucked up. Why is it fucked up? How can we unfuck it? One of my biggest gripes about reenactors is people are willing to say this is fucked up or that is fucked up, but they're not willing to have a solution to go with it. Generally, what you're doing is you're just bitching. You're bitching for no reason at all, because if you can't think to make it better, and you don't have a realistic outcome, then why are you bitching? Let me see your event. Let me see the event you're putting on. I know I put on events. This event is not something I put on. It's not something I had anything to do with the planning, but I will tell you what, for all the adversity that these folks had, they did a hell of a job. In fact, when it comes down to it, most of my criticisms lie with the attitude of the side I was on more so than the event organizers. There's a lot of things the individual reenactor can do to improve themselves. Anyhow, that's all I got time for. I went on way too long. If you got any comments, complaints, or anything you want to do, hit me up. We'll try to address it. Y'all take care. Bye.